Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Electric Bison. Sunday morning, I'm standing in front of the cathedral in Helena, Montana that was built mostly with money earned by a illiterate Irish peasant man who came to Montana and steadfastly dug for gold for 8 years. And he built the Capitol building as well. Not many people realize that. Things like that get forgotten. I'm sure it meant a lot to him. What I'd like to talk to you about today is Catholics, which I have always been one. Irish Catholics, of which I have always been one. And, those of us who sometimes are late for church, late for Mass, we're the ones that are going to make the difference in the upcoming election. And what I'd like to talk to you about is what I've learned as I'm doing research on a book about John Riley, the Catholic Irishman who ended up fighting on the side of the Mexicans during the invasion we had of Mexico, where we got about 55% of their country and made it part of ours. He was up in Mackinac Island in the Great Lakes. And that's where he joined the military after coming across from the British Army. And I've always wondered what happened to him that caused him to think the way that he did. And what I've been able to figure out so far is in September, when he enlisted in 1845, he went down through the Great Lakes on the USS Michigan, which was our first iron ship. And he went to Toledo, and he got with the other soldiers from Company K, the 5th Infantry. He got on a boat taking him down 275 miles across Ohio. They had just finished the Miami and Erie Canal in Ohio, and you could do that and go by water from the Great Lakes down to the Ohio River at Cincinnati. I didn't know this, but it was very interesting. But what really was of interest to me was what was on his mind, because he had not been exposed to slavery. And at that time, the great liberator in Ireland, Daniel O'Connell, had made a huge speech that was passed all around America, both up in Canada and down in the States, about why slavery was something Irish people should not be associated with. And it was built on an encyclical by Pope Gregory the 16th, who said the same thing. All human beings are the same, and we, if we believe in the right of human beings to try to make a good life, everyone's entitled to that. And so O'Connell, he came down hard over in Ireland. Now, he was called the Liberator, and he wouldn't take money from Irish societies in the States who were sending him money to help get the Parliament back into Ireland. But he wouldn't take money from them if they were involved in slavery. It was a really tough stance that he took, and so it caused a split here in this country. So a lot of the organizations that were in the South, a lot of Irish people got on the wrong boat, and they went down in the South. They were all ticked off because a lot of them were slaveholders. Remember Gone with the Wind, Tara? The plantation, that's named after Tara in Ireland, and the Irish family that owned slaves. And but up in the north too, it was a big thing because the Erie Canal was being built, and there was all this huge construction starting to take place. And the Irishmen that were coming in here during the famine were desperate for their jobs, and they saw blacks coming north as a threat to their jobs. A lot of them did, and also at the same time, there was the nativist movement, the people that are MAGA people today that hated Irishmen then. It's typical. There's those kind of people everywhere. They had caused some riots in Philadelphia, burned down a couple schools and a church. And it really sobered the Irish. They didn't climb on a bandwagon as fast as they normally do. And so you had this situation where the Irish were trying to lay low, kind of, so they could just survive in the North. And they were owning slaves and making a lot of money in the South. Yeah, it's the truth. And we have to deal with that. So what happened, this was in 1848, this is long before the Civil War, is this John Riley, he gets down into Cincinnati and he sees this new cathedral that's just been built in 1845 by an Irish bishop named Purcell. He was born in Mallow in Cork, and he had he found a way to get an education, and then he was ordained a priest and became a bishop. And he was out in Cincinnati, which had it was the only diocese in Ohio, and he had to respond to all these German American and Irish American Catholics that were coming in, you know, just a deluge of them. And so they built this new cathedral there in Cincinnati called St. Peter in the Chains. It's very interesting. And it was based around a painting from a Spaniard about St. Peter being visited by an angel while he's in chains prior to being martyred. And they built this beautiful cathedral. It was fantastic, tallest building in town. Well, John Riley would have seen that as he came in on the barge on the canal, because it was just a block and a half just north of the cathedral. And of course, any of us would have gone down there to check that out. It was brand new, beautiful. And so here he is thinking about St. Peter in chains, St. Peter. And the theme came to be about the keys to the kingdom and all that later on when they made the cathedral fancier. But he was dealing with that. And he's a new guy trying to figure out what's America all about. And at a time when Daniel O'Connell, the Liberator, was saying that Irishmen shouldn't even be associated. They shouldn't filthy their hands with slavery. And so the American Irish were caught in this quandary. So then he goes down to the Ohio River and gets on a steamboat to go down with the other soldiers, to go down to New Orleans, to cross over to Corpus Christi to begin the war with Mexico. And what do you find on the boat? You find hundreds of slaves that had been captured in northern Kentucky along the Ohio River, which was the dividing line between the free states and the slave states. And they had been kept in pens, and they're dragging their chains, and they're going onto the main deck, the boiler deck of the steamboat. And he's up there in the cabin with the soldiers, and he's seeing this, and he's smelling it, seeing it and smelling it, and he's going, this is a bunch of crap. Well, the thing is, in those days, the Irish didn't perform very well. I mean, we're all proud of the Irish Brigade out here in Montana because Thomas Francis Moore was here, and I know they're proud of it in New York. But really, our alliance should have been with the blacks across the board, but then we were competing for jobs. I got uncles that are just, you know, idiots, and they get down on the black people because of that. But we're not there now. We're not there now. We're Catholics. We're Irish, and we need to show up to help these people that are having the vote taken away from them by a bunch of basically nativists. They're using immigrants as scapegoats, being taken away from them by nativists that agreed with Trump that his election was stolen the last time around. They actually may get elected. Now, I don't know how that's going to turn out, but you know, Congress is at stake, and we've seen how bad Congress has performed this last couple of years. They just stood back and let Trump and his people do what they want to do. But it's time to show up. We couldn't show up, you know, 160 years ago. It was tougher, but we don't have that problem now. And we have the Pope's admonitions for years, hundreds of years now, that we're all equal. We have our Declaration of Independence that we're all equal. We're not landowners like Jefferson or Washington, right? We're just regular people. But we do stuff. And no matter what the priests tell us inside the church, we know what the right thing is. So this morning, I'll have to go to church later because I decided to do this for my prayer today. But this morning, we need to get our act together, both in the North and in the South of the United States, Irish American Catholics, and kick Trump's ass seriously in this next election, no matter how they change the rules, no matter even if you were a maggot before. We need to get this done. Thanks.